evening, folks. This is Deb Delapiana. I am wiped out tonight, folks. This is a 40-hour week for me in my retirement, I might add. And I am just dead right now. But I have one more day left. And tomorrow is going to be a 7:30 in the morning to 5 o'clock at night day. I'm opening and closing the store. And so I am hitting the hay early tonight, but I did want to get this video in. And I will try to make it shorter rather than longer because there's reading material here. And I can't impress upon you people how important it is that you pay attention to what I'm going to say tonight. Because this video is about voting. And it's not just, an exhortation for you to go out and vote. It's about dispelling some of the myths that are out there. The first myth we're going to dispel is that your vote doesn't matter. Okay? If your vote didn't matter, we would not have all of the big lie going on right now. Your vote indeed does matter. I need you to listen to me, Democrats. Your vote does matter. It matters very much. And it matters very much to the Republicans too, because the second myth I want to dispel is that the Republicans can legitimately win legitimate elections. I don't believe that they can anymore. I think their popularity has waned. I think their policies are wildly unpopular. I think their fascism is not gaining them any strength. And this is all about a power grab. Okay, whatever it is that they're doing here, this is about power and control and running a fascist regime. Period. It can't be viewed or seen in any other way. They have literally done absolutely nothing for the American people in the last decade, the Republican Party. They have been the party of no, the party of obstruction, the party of let's kill everything that's for the people. Now they're, spreading all kinds of bullshit about Joe Biden's latest bill and about his student debt forgiveness package that he just put in place yesterday. They don't want to do anything for the American people. All you see on Twitter are comments like, why should a mechanic have to pay for your education, blah, 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 blah. Listen to me. The Republicans under Donald Trump gave billions of dollars to billionaires in lowered taxes, okay? They gave tax breaks to billionaires. They gave PPP loans in the middle of COVID to people like Tom Brady, whose family wealth is almost at $900 million. Marjorie Taylor Greene got a PPP loan. Matt Gaetz got a PPP loan. All of their loans have been forgiven. And they're out there pissing and moaning about students earning less than $75,000 a year getting a break on their college debt. They can shut the fuck up. They are the party of let's do nothing for the American people. And you know what? The people who are their acolytes and their followers, who are the true believers, who really do believe, more than half of the Republican voters in this country believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump. There is absolutely no factual evidence that happened. They literally have had 61 out of 62 court cases thrown out. And the only court case that was legitimate was a minor court case that had absolutely no bearing on the outcome of the election. And many of the people who threw out those cases were judges that were appointed by Donald Trump. The Supreme Court itself, literally the GOP's mouthpiece in the legal world, rejected two of Donald Trump's claims itself. The GOP knows it cannot win elections legitimately. That is why this all happened. That is why what happened on January 6, 2021 occurred. It is why 147 sitting legislators right now voted to overturn a legitimate election. Yeah, there is election fraud going on, but it ain't from the Democrats. And I'm going to show you some stuff right now. So let's see. Donald Trump's cries of election fraud actually started in 2016 when he defeated Hillary Clinton. You will remember, of course, that that was a very acrimonious lead up to the election, and it was a very acrimonious election. After the election, which Donald Trump won, he claimed that millions of people voted illegally and stole the popular vote from him. So in other words, let me explain it to you. He won. He was the president of the United States, and he was still bitching that he didn't win the popular vote. And why didn't he win the popular vote? Because illegals voted and took the vote away from him. There have been other elections, my friends, where the popular vote was not won by the candidate who won the electoral vote. That's why many people want to get rid of the electoral college. So let's talk about the big lie. This is how all of this started, over and over and over and over again. From the time he lost the 2020 election, and he lost the 2020 election because after he was elected in 2016, he was proven to be literally the worst fucking president this country has ever seen. He did absolutely nothing for the American people. Absolutely nothing. Okay? In the middle of COVID, he embraced herd immunity. He embraced hydroxychloroquine. He embraced cures that were not cures. He was the leading disseminator of false information. He literally stymied the CDC. He forced them to change reports, forced them to not release reports. He literally made Anthony Fauci an enemy of the American people, a man who has served his country under multiple administrations, both Republican and Democrat, with distinction. He is America's doctor because he is the leading infectious disease specialist in the country and actually probably in the world. He was the face of the AIDS epidemic. He was the man who said that gay people belonged at the table to talk about the cures and the medicines that they would try to reach the public with because it directly affected them. He championed that move, and he's still working on AIDS right now. Okay, his research into AIDS made AIDS a manageable disease. Millions of people can now live with AIDS and live to an old age because of the work that Anthony Fauci did. Not only did he research, but he was treating AIDS patients at the same time. So Donald Trump has managed to vilify just about everybody who doesn't fit the bill for him. And then, of course, we had the alternate electors plot, where they took the 7 swing states and literally came up with alternate electors and wanted to deliver these documents to Mike Pence so that he would not certify the election. Mike Pence rightfully refused to accept those electors. And by the way, this is a plot, and this is a great research piece by American Oversight that explains the entire thing to you. All of the FOIA requests are here for you to look at. It is about as complete as you can get. This was an alternate electors plot, not done by the Democratic Party. This was an alternate electors plot concocted by the GOP under Donald Trump. And it was part and parcel of a lot of shit that went on. Yes, my friends, there was attempted election fraud. There was an attempt to steal the election, but it wasn't by the Democrats. Here's Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the election by the numbers. You can take a look at this. Let's just show you all the tweets right here. Here we go, right here. This is why it's not really the lamestream media. It's the rigged media, and it's what I'm up against. It was corrupt in 2016. Now it is much more corrupt, and what you are seeing is the least of it. But we will win again. These are all of his tweets, starting from May right on through December. So he started sowing the seeds of this bullshit before the election even happened. Election lawsuits, 62. They are all here for you to see. Okay? Election lawsuit defeats, 61. We just talked about that. Right there. That's the one. Some were dismissed for lack of standing, and others were dismissed based on the merits of the voter fraud allegations. The decisions have come from both Democratic appointed and Republican appointed judges, including federal judges now appointed by Donald Trump. State Supreme Courts in Arizona and Nevada each rejected or declined to hear Trump's appeals in those states. The number of contested states by the GOP, there were 6 for a total of 73 electoral votes. Biden won 79 of those votes. So even the number here that Trump was trying to affect would not have changed the outcome. And by the way, none of this stuff was legitimate or heard. Okay, Trump won 5 of the states 4 years ago over Hillary Clinton, but Biden flipped each to the Democratic column. He flipped each to the Democratic column because I said it earlier. Donald Trump was one of the worst presidents ever seen. He created more havoc. There was more corruption in government than ever under him, and the people saw that. Okay? The number of times the U.S. Supreme Court sided against Trump, 2. The only 2 times it was brought to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court twice refused to take Trump-endorsed lawsuits that sought to overturn the results of the November 3rd election. On December 8th, when they rejected Kelly Mike et al. Versus Pennsylvania et al., and December 11th, Texas versus Pennsylvania et al. Number of recounts, 3. Biden remained the winner. Number of elections Trump has claimed were rigged, at least 6. Number of electoral votes changed as a result of Trump's efforts, 0. It still had Biden at 306, Trump at 232. All of his whining and sniveling and accusations resulted in absolutely no meaningful difference in the Electoral College. And at the end of the day, it's the Electoral College that wins the election. So now let's talk about people who have indulged in true election fraud and election tampering. Colorado clerk is indicted for election tampering and misconduct. Tina Peters has been indicted in Colorado, and she has also had her deputy indicted. And it was for election security breach in her office, which was inspired by Donald Trump's false claim that he won the 2020 election. What did Tina Peters do? Well, as we know, in many states where the election was legitimate and where the electors actually did their job, those electors are now facing death threats constantly from Donald Trump supporters, okay? Peters was the county clerk and recorder in Mesa County in Western Colorado. She faces 10 counts, including 7 felony charges and 3 misdemeanors. The felony charges include attempting to influence a public servant, identity theft, criminal impersonation, and conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation. The misdemeanors include first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, and failure to comply with the requirements of the Secretary of State. Her deputy, Belinda Nisley has been indicted on 6 counts, including an attempt to influence a public servant, conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, violation of duty, and failure to comply with the requirements of the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State, of course, is the position that certifies an election. It's a very, very, very important position when it comes to election time. The pair is accused of helping an unauthorized person make copies of sensitive voting machine hard drives. Do you understand what we're saying here? She made copies of voting machine hard drives. She then went to a meeting held by MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, one of the leading promoters of the big lie on behalf of Donald Trump. And she shared that information with a fucking pillow manufacturer. The maker of the equipment that she messed with, Dominion Voting Systems, has been the focus of false conspiracy theories claiming to help steal the 2020 election for Biden. They are suing a number of people. Their suit against Fox could break Fox. And here's hoping it does. You want to read Tina Peters' indictment? It's all right here for you. Tina Peters was denied a travel request. Now, this is in August of this year. She was denied a travel request. And the reason it was denied was she was indicted last year, and under that indictment, it was required that she submit a request to travel out of state to the district court. She ignored that and traveled out of state without warning them, and an arrest warrant was issued for her. She eventually turned herself in. But this time around, Tina Peters requested a permission to travel out of state. And she wanted to travel to Springfield, Missouri to attend the Moment of Truth Summit. You can't make this shit up, folks. The documents state that Peters took part in a documentary film celebrating the 2020 election theft conspiracy. And the action she took during that election ultimately resulted in Peters being in hot water with the law. She was seeking to attend the summit because it was necessary to further her business interests. I just would like to state here that Tina Peters is still drawing a $93,000 a year salary. She didn't need to go to that, and she didn't get permission. So this is her clerk, Belinda Nisley, who turned on Tina Peters and made an agreement to serve 2 years probation in order to give them everything they need to put Tina Peters in jail. And the judge actually made it clear that he felt that Belinda Nisley should still be in prison, but he's approving the deal because Tina Peters is what we call the big fish, and she needs to go to the big house. In Arizona, they've lost their fucking minds, okay? This is continually the only thing they ever run on in California is the big lie that the election was stolen, okay? It will never die there. But right now, we're going to focus on Georgia for a few minutes. This could be where Donald Trump actually is indicted before even his federal investigations are over. So in Georgia, there is a grand jury that was called by Fannie Willis, who was the district attorney for Fulton County, and that includes Atlanta. The special grand jury was convened in May. It is an investigative. Let me just explain. This is an investigative grand jury, which is different from a regular grand jury. So a grand jury may hear, every felony under the sun. They impanel grand juries to hear cases to decide whether charges should be brought against people. This is an investigative grand jury, which will focus only on the election fraud in Georgia. This is where they are the furthest ahead in investigating, okay? They're relatively rare in Georgia. They haven't been used a whole lot, but they're being used this time. And they're investigating Donald Trump and his allies for violating Georgia state law in their efforts to reverse the former president's 2020 loss in the state. Those efforts included his phone call on January 2nd, 2021, with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, in which Trump said he wanted Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes, which would be what it would take to defeat Joe Biden in that state. He wanted the Secretary of State to find those votes for him. They actually have that on a recorded call. It also encompasses efforts by the Trump campaign to create a slate of fake electors. Remember, we talked about the fake electors at the beginning. And they did create a slate of fake electors in Georgia to transmit fraudulent electoral votes to Congress for certification. So Willis actually sent a letter to all 16 fake electors to inform them that they were considered targets of the investigation, which means they're being viewed as potential subjects of indictment, not just witnesses. The grand jury is also talking to a wide range of people, including a former publicist for Kanye West, who would allegedly try to pressure an election worker into making untrue claims about voter fraud. Brian Kemp, the state's Republican governor, who was the subject of an unrelenting pressure campaign by Trump to take action on his behalf. I believe that right now, Kemp is up for re-election, and he's trying very hard to avoid having to do anything with this grand jury. It also is seeking to talk to Rudy Giuliani, which has been done. And by the way, Rudy Giuliani has been informed that he is also a target, which means that he could very well come under indictment here. They're also trying to speak to South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who is vehemently fighting this subpoena. And it may be that he wins some of that so that they can't ask him about certain things that relate to his job as a senator. This is still in the courts. He's gotten a temporary reprieve right now, but he will eventually have to testify. Rudy Giuliani, should be noted, tried to avoid it entirely and lost overwhelmingly. It is possible that this is more likely to result in trouble for Trump than the Justice Department investigation, possibly, but not entirely. It is clear now that Donald Trump is being investigated by the Department of Justice, not just for the document shit, but he's also being investigated by Merrick Garland for the election stuff now in the wake of the J6 hearings. And he has requested evidence from the J6 hearings as well. His department has also been going through emails that have been, that require them being decoded, in other words. So the thing about the Fannie Willis investigation in Georgia, she's not bound by DOJ policies. She doesn't have to worry about being careful about what she does before an election and things like that. There are a set of rules that apply when an election is going on. So she's not hampered by any of that. She's a state, she's not federal. And she's looking at only what happened in Georgia. This will be interesting. This is not technically attached to the J6 committee. The investigations are entirely separate, but what they are investigating is definitely connected. So there is going to be overlap in what they do. We'll see where this goes. I do have a lot of faith in Fannie Willis, though she has proven to be pretty tough. So part of what was found in Georgia was that sensitive election system files that were obtained by the attorneys working to overturn President Donald Trump's 2020 defeat were shared with election deniers, conspiracy theorists, and right-wing commentators. A computer forensic firm in Georgia hired by the attorneys placed the files on a server where company records show they were downloaded dozens of times. Among the downloaders were accounts associated with a Texas meteorologist who has appeared on Sean Hannity's radio show, a podcaster who suggested political enemies should be executed, a former pro surfer who pushed disproven theories that the 2020 election was manipulated, and a self-described former, quote, seduction and pickup coach who also claims to have been a hacker. And these were obtained by subpoena, as part of this Georgia investigation. So, needless to say, all of the accusations from the right and from the GOP about, tampering with elections, there's clearly one group of people here who are doing the tampering. It is not the Democratic Party. Now, Giuliani has been told as of just a couple of weeks ago that he is now a target in Georgia. I mentioned that a few minutes ago. I also mentioned that Lady Lindsay, she's been given a slight reprieve. I believe that eventually, in some capacity, Lindsey Graham will have to testify, senator or not. Election deniers under investigation for taking vote tabulators. In Michigan, this is in Michigan, another state that was key to Donald Trump. So I want you to listen to this now. The Michigan Republican Party's presumptive nominee for Attorney General, Matt DePerno, is one of 9 people under investigation for engaging in conspiracy to access equipment. They access and compromise tabulators from clerk's offices in northern and west Michigan counties, brought them to Oakland County. Attorney General Dana Nessel's office wrote in a petition seeking a special prosecutor so that because there is a potential political conflict of interest. I'd like to remind you that the Attorney General in any state is the highest law enforcement position in the state, just as Merrick Garland is the highest law enforcement official in the country. The presumptive nominee for that Attorney General slot is under investigation. What's wrong with that picture? Also under investigation are State Rep Dare Rendon and Barry County Sheriff Dar Leaf. The allegations are astounding, according to Chris Thomas, the state's former elections director. I have no idea what they did in there. So here is yet another state where election tampering is going to be looked at. But in the meantime, this goes to my point that they can't win legitimately. The big goal of this election is to get as many people into the Secretary of State positions as they can, because those are the people who control the votes. Okay? In Arizona, Mark Fincham is the presumptive GOP nominee for the Secretary of State. Mark Fincham, who is going to oversee the elections, who tweets, Trump won, decertify Yuma, Maricopa, and Pima, arrest Fontes and Hobbs. By the way, Hobbs, she is running, she was the former Secretary of State. She is running against Carrie Lake, the crazy woman. She's now running for governor, Hobbs. She's not going to jail. She didn't do anything wrong. Okay? All she did was certify the election as it was won again. Okay? Joe Biden won Arizona. She certified it. So according to Mark Fincham, she belongs in jail. Mark Fincham, who is now running for Secretary of State, you better pray a Democrat wins there. The idea of putting these people into these slots, my friends, is so they can steal the fucking election. Do we understand that? They will tell you it's because they need to protect election integrity. There was never a problem with election integrity. They are the problem with election integrity. They are trying to steal the elections because they can't win them legitimately. Jim Marchant, he's another one. Okay? Nevada, Secretary of State, another election denier. Christina Caramo, another Secretary of State, an election denier. Understand, people, what's going on here in this country. They're putting people in these positions so that they can be the ones to certify the election. That is the job of the Secretary of State. Now, anytime a Republican loses, the Secretary of State can claim election fraud. That's what's going on here. Get a clue. In New York, there's another way to steal an election. Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin, running for public office. And what does he do? The allegation is that Zeldin's campaign submitted over 11,000 photocopied petition signatures in order to appear on the Independence Party line in November. So last month, the State Board of Elections tossed out about 13,000 invalid signatures, more than enough to lose Zeldin and the rest of the GOP statewide slate included in the petition, the extra ballot line. It's a very sneaky way of trying to split the vote so that he wins. Lee Zeldin is a Trump supporter, an election denier. Election deniers are one step closer to taking control of voting in 4 key states. We just went over some of them. Mark Fincham right there. all of the people that I mentioned earlier, you know that in these states, the people in the GOP side who have been nominated are all election deniers. The Democrats really need to win these slots, people. We're in a very, very precarious situation here in this country. They are serious about what they're doing. They know they can't win any other way if the left comes out and votes. If you do your civic duty, they can't win. You need to come out and vote. The reason that Donald Trump won to begin with is that there were so many things spread. They did such a great job poisoning the minds of the left against the Democrats that they didn't go out and vote. You need to come out and vote. We are now no longer where we were in 2016. We are so much further down the pipe. We are in a very dangerous slot here. And then we have gerrymandering, voter suppression. We have a long history of this in America, mostly against the poor, people of color, LGBTQ, transgender, all of the people who would not vote for a Republican, in short. Now, I'm not saying that people of color don't ever vote Republican. They do. But not large numbers, okay? We have a guy here, Chris Kobach, of the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity. That was a position set up by Trump. He headed this Civil Rights Division. A person named Vanita Gupta headed the Justice Department Civil Rights Division under President Obama. And he calls the Chris Kobach Commission a pretext to kick millions of eligible voters off the rolls and undermine the sanctity of our election systems. Okay? Again, under the guise of election integrity, what they will do is disenfranchise millions of voters who are voters who would not vote for the Republicans to begin with. That's the plan here. This is what we call a soft coup, folks. Okay? Voter fraud is more rare than being struck by lightning, it says here, yet the fear-mongering persists. Okay? He ran for office in Kansas in 2010. Chris Kobach, who's the head of this commission, he claimed he'd found evidence that thousands of Kansans were assuming the identities of dead voters and casting fraudulent ballots. That's a technique that was once known as ghost voting. He even offered a name, Albert K. Brewer of Wichita, who he said had voted from beyond the grave in the primaries that year. But the truth of the matter is that Albert K. Brewer, age 78, was still very much alive, and he was a registered Republican. Nobody ghost voted in Kansas that year. They did an investigation and no evidence was found of that. This is how all of this fear-mongering over election integrity is started, okay? There is no widespread voter fraud, but there is widespread gerrymandering of districts so that it is more favorable to the GOP. Here's some maps you can take a look at. We've shown these before. They show you how these districts are being changed so that more votes go to the Republicans than the Democrats. Changing districts, lumping them together. There's all kinds of data here for you to look at. We don't need to go through these in detail in this video, but you need to look at just how this happens. In the state of Florida, for example, they have a GOP, primarily a GOP legislature. There's not that many Democrats. The GOP basically owns a legislature. They submitted a redistricting plan to Ron DeSantis, the little dictator of Florida. And they submitted to him for approval and he vetoed it. And then what he did was basically strong arm his legislature into letting him do it himself.
Issues with your application? Is it
Okay,
the code?
hold on.
The network? New Relic knows. Up
Where
your
is
observability
this
game
coming from?
with 16 monitoring tools in one. newrelic.com/newrelic knows.
All right, anyway, we're going to let that go. So Ron DeSantis wasn't happy with that. He didn't like their redistricting. So he strong armed the legislature and he redistricted it himself and submitted it to them and they rubber stamped it. So he has now changed the whole scope of how votes are cast in that state. There is a group there that is taking that whole idea to court. It did get as high as the Supreme Court there, and they decided not to interfere with it before the midterms. They're going to let it stand. But I will tell you that the lawsuits will continue until that is resolved. There is a group of people down there simply who understand exactly what Ron DeSantis is doing, and they're not going to let it die. So it's not over yet. As we say, the wheels of justice spin slowly. I showed you some, gerrymandering of districts and voter suppression, some of these maps here. These are only some of the states where it's being done. I do know that in North Carolina, some of this stuff has reared its ugly head. And in North Carolina, their courts are actually much more amenable to stopping the nonsense before the midterms. There is something definitely going on with that there. Right now we are updating the website. The section we are working on is this voter suppression section. So I will make sure that all of the information about North Carolina is included there. And in the meantime, I'm going to also close this video with this link. This is a litigation tracker of pending criminal and civil cases against Donald Trump. This is from a website called Just Security. So not only are all of his, look at him, it's mammoth. Not only are all of his civil and criminal cases enumerated here, but all of the election fraud stuff that he's involved in, all of the J6 stuff that he's involved in, all of it is enumerated here and it's updated. It was just updated on August 17th. They do a pretty good job of keeping this up to date. So, in short, the people who are claiming that they are the victims of election fraud are actually the people trying to commit election fraud. Make no mistake about it. Now, I realize that a lot of Republicans believe the word of Donald Trump. I'm going to say that that's very ill-advised, but I can't stop you. But I can say this to the Democratic voters out there. We have one chance to save ourselves here. We can't afford to let the midterm slip by, because if the midterm slip by, we can forget 2024. There will be no reclaiming anything. There is an article out there in the Atlantic, and there's a reason why I subscribe to the Atlantic, about a speech Donald Trump made where he pretty much said that if he wins again, he has no intention of ever ceding power. We are in a very, very precarious situation here. And I want to make one other thing very clear. It does not matter if Donald Trump is indicted, and it does not matter if Donald Trump cannot run again in 2024, because there are plenty of people he has left behind. This problem now is now not just that it's Donald Trump. The GOP has grabbed onto this and they are running with this ball. This is their strategy. All the way from Mitch McConnell, all the way to Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert. Those who are remaining silent, they are complicit The ones who don't agree with what's going on, they've left. Adam Kinzinger is not running again. The people who bucked Trump, many of those people lost because they bucked Trump. Liz Cheney being one of them. The Republican Party is lost, folks. It is not going to right itself. And getting rid of Donald Trump is not going to change the situation. The entirety of the Republican Party has now embraced this. And so have its followers. Donald Trump may be gone at some point, but his followers remain. And they will carry on in his wake. I hope you people understand what's going on here. We have an entire website that talks about all of this. It is constantly being updated. It will be removed and, taken down this weekend and updated again. But for tonight, it's up there. And it's at the end of every single video we make. I urge you all to look at what's there and to look at the links that are provided there. Thanks a lot, and I will talk to you soon.